All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the break a little bit. Get up, stretch, do a little yoga, and so on. We have a great talk as we're coming out of the break. This is how to establish a cybersecurity culture in automotive development work. So, going beyond the ISO 21434. I'm very excited to introduce Manuel Sandler. He's actually working he's a partner at Cyrus Consulting in Munich, Germany. Manuel, thank you for being here. The stage is yours, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, John, for the introduction, and thank you for being here again after last year and having the possibility to take part in this great conference. So, as John said, my name is Manuel, and I give you today an introduction into cybersecurity culture. So, meaning not having a look at the standard, actually giving you some inspirations beyond for your daily work to understand how, in the end, to establish a cybersecurity culture. What does it mean? What is the definition of that? What are measures to reach that from an organization point of view, from a project point of view, and also how, in the end, to measure that, how to create evidences. So the target to give you some, as I said, inspiration, some idea to use in your daily projects, to use in your company. So as mentioned, I'm Manuel, working for several years now in the automotive industry, but let's have a focus now on our actual topic. So cybersecurity culture. So it's a word, or culture itself, a word without any hard facts, more something like a feeling. And when you're scrolling, for example, through LinkedIn, you can see now many people who state that they're the best in modern company, they can work from everywhere. So that's part of their working culture. But let's bring that in the context of cybersecurity. So first, we all have more or less the ISO SAE 21434 is one of the leading standards, the leading documents. And there's also one requirement towards that, actually quite simple. Organizations shall foster and maintain a strong cybersecurity culture. Sounds quite simple. There are also some examples in the annex. We can discuss how helpful they are. So no worry, I won't go through them, but you can do also at home. I want to go one step further and give you some experience what we did in our past, in our project, what worked well for us, and what can also help you. And by the way, the UNR regulation does not mention it, it's just one part of the interpretation document. So what is a culture? So let's start with a definition of that. The ISO SAE 214 does not give really a precise explanation. It's just the term, same as in the ISO 26262, where you have the safety culture. I would like to give you one of our approaches and to split that in three different areas. So meaning first, a culture seen from the cognitions, from the knowledge. So what is the knowledge of the employees towards cybersecurity? What are their beliefs? Second, in terms of behavior. So how do they behave on a daily basis? How do they behave in terms of cybersecurity? How do they behave in terms of creating the respective work products? And the third point of view, the attitudes. What are the feelings, the emotions? Do they really all want to do the same thing, protecting the car or protecting the products? What are their feelings if things really do not work? What do they have in mind if test cases fail or incidences are detected? So more or less to have this term distributed or defined by knowing, acting, and feeling. With the target, not just following any policies and standards to really make cybersecurity as an integral part of the employees' work and habits. So that's something, just something normal. And why do we need it? We do not need it because the standard says it. Yeah, of course, we need to be compliant, but we should think about what is the motivation, what is really the purpose behind it, and what is the added value. And I want to give you two examples. There are many reasons, but two examples are quite important for me and for my work in the last years. On the one hand, as you know, we are all human beings. And we have now in the automotive world a global development. Global development means involve different countries and cultural differences. And it's also this conference now shows how globalized the automotive world is. We have here hundreds of people involved from Asia, from Europe, from the US, so people from Canada, really around the world. And the same we have in the daily, or in many cases in the daily project work. But cultural differences means also different behavior, maybe different reactions, and therefore different decisions. And we need to understand how this is happening or giving a guideline for it. Also, we have not people only located in different areas, so they're also sometimes separated from the daily work and they have different knowledge and awareness. So somebody working as a cybersecurity engineer on a system level has a different knowledge about cybersecurity maybe than a tester. But still, they need to follow more or less the same way and have, again, the same reactions if something happens. And last point, mistakes happen. There's in Forbes an article from, I think, 2021, where it stated that more than 80% of IT breaches are caused by humans or by human mistakes. And also in our development in the automotive world, mistakes happen, but with a strong culture, with the right measures in the company, in the processes, we are able to either avoid that or to detect that. Apart from the human aspect, another reason why a cybersecurity culture is so helpful, so essential, the timing or the development of vehicles or respect to cybersecurity, we call it here, it's not linear. So cybersecurity affects different activities across the life cycle. We have the development of the product, we have the production phase, where we need to ensure that not anything is integrated. We have the post-development phase when the car is in the field, and just doing a TARA or pen testing in the development does not secure your production line. So we need to consider all phases of the life cycle. Further, as you probably know, cybersecurity somehow needs anticipating. So we need to know, or we need to anticipate what might happen in the future. So it's hard to react when the vehicle is already in the field. So we need to prevent activities. And it's not just, okay, something's happening, we are reacting to that. And third, threats will always be there, and even they will evolve. So especially the continuous cybersecurity activities are the best example. It's not a one-time activity. It's needed all the time, constantly or continuously, and we need to integrate every time the feedback. And for that, again, it's important to have a strong culture, a strong frame to be able to do that. And as I said, there might be much more reasons, but that's from my point of view the most important. So let's start with some measures. Just give me a second, sorry for that. So let's start with some measures. So first, from a management point of view, again, it maybe sounds quite simple, but important here, we call it a meaningful top-down approach. So in terms of in the language of the UNR 155, you have in companies more and more established a cybersecurity management system, or a set of processes, responsibilities, and roles. And the first requirement of the ISO is having a policy in mind. So that's actually the starting point by the management to give a direction for the way forward. And we have seen now in the last years projects where such kind of policy was provided with hundreds of pages, and nobody will read it. As a quite simple approach, keep it simple. Maybe create some kind of a one-pager, really define from your company point of view. What's the vision? What's your long-term strategy? Make the commitment from the management visible. Maybe define also some practices, how you're doing that. And keep it simple and easy to access. So ensure the distribution that everyone in the company can commit to that. So really giving a clear, simple guidance, everybody is able to commit to identify this. This gives much, much more direction to the people than just working on different random tasks without knowing what is the way forward. So as I said, that was a quite simple start. Let's continue from the top-down approach. So we have companies, and companies are usually organized in different departments. meaning you have some kind of a development department, R&D department, which consists of different projects. There might be a department for production, one for HR, one for IT, and many, many more. And what is now more and more in place, and companies more and more establish a new role, some kind of a head of cybersecurity or head of vehicle cybersecurity, to be more specific. Because the standard says that you need to have clear responsibilities defined. But what happens if you have this single person put as the head of cybersecurity? He actually needs to handle the risk acceptance if you're not able to mitigate the technical risk based on the hierarchy in your concept. So if you have open risk, he needs to find a way to get acceptance, or even needs to do the acceptance. He needs to ensure the compliance to the standards and regulations. There might be escalations needed where he needs to be involved. Still, you need a company strategy on the long term for handling cybersecurity. And somehow he also needs to solve the whole knowledge and resource gap which we have towards cybersecurity in the automotive industry. So all these different topics are pressuring to one person. And of course, what is happening in that case, he's getting overloaded, frustrated, there's no decision making, he cannot really support projects in the other teams, he makes mistakes, and in the end, you have new vulnerabilities. And of course, that's not the way how it should go and how responsibilities should handle. Instead of that, an approach we are doing with different customers, let's try to identify representatives from different departments and build, based on that, some kind of a cybersecurity decision board, or you can call it cybersecurity committee. So defining responsibilities does not need to be a one-man show. So you can integrate different people into some kind of a decision board, which helps you to represent the interests of the different departments. So it should not only be from a cybersecurity or from a development point of view. You can ensure decision-making progress by that. You also integrate the individual experience and the knowledge of those people of those departments to get better decisions in the end. You also share the responsibility. If there's a question, we are not able to integrate a dedicated control in the vehicle. So there is a risk if we bring it to the street. This risk can still be accepted based on different conditions. But it's easier to accept, or you get a better decision if you share that responsibility, if you have a broader opinion, and maybe based on that you get better defined ways to move forward. And you have, of course, also the possibility to maybe a stronger possibility to escalate if required to one level higher to the executive management. So from my point of view, really to get a progress, to ensure progress in companies, you should avoid a one-man show towards the overall responsibility of cybersecurity. Another idea proposal, also from a management point of view, is a holistic risk management approach. So what I mean here, on the one side, on company level, you have a quality management system with different processes, requirements management, configuration management, and one of them is usually also risk management. Based on your risk management process, you get some kind of a risk list where all your risks are identified and they're evaluated, either in a sheet or probably in a tool, but somehow you have risks on company level defined. On the other side, you have your projects with different development of products. Within a company, you can also have different products, of course. And each of the product are following, let's say, usually the cybersecurity development approach, having an item definition, a TARA, a concept, and requirements based on that. And of course, in these steps, you're also identifying vehicle security risks. For example, opportunities for hackers to get access to our car. And sometimes it is that these risks are possible to mitigate by your concept, but sometimes they aren't, based on timing constraints, on technical constraints, on missing supplier deliveries, whatever. And our approach, or our high recommendation is these vehicle risks have an impact to the company. If you're not able to sell the car because you didn't get the type approval, or if your product gets hacked in the field, that has an impact on your company. So if there are risks from a cybersecurity point of view, we highly recommend to integrate them in the overall company risk list. And of course, not only from one project, from all different projects. Then you have really from your overall company a holistic view. What are the risks, and to find the possibility to find an overall prioritization, setting the right resources, or maybe also the acceptance, and you avoid two different worlds. And of course, maybe it's possible, as I said, you accept a risk because selling a product, let the company survive, and you really go into that risk, but you're aware of that, and you can define different countermeasures. Another approach, another idea, and now we're going more towards a project point of view, is about the overall development process. There's also, again, the requirement in the ISO to define cybersecurity-related rules and processes. But independent from cybersecurity, actually, basics in project management is you have a time span of your development within start of development, and after a time, start of production. And usually you have some kind of project gates or project milestones across the project time. And there you get, for this gates, different deliverables, like a project plan, your system requirements, your software requirements. And for the different gates, you check, okay, are the processes or the documentation fine? Is the process reached before going to the next step? Some kind of a quality check to see is the project going in the right way. So that usually basics of project management. And if you see for a specific gate, the requirements, the test cases, whatever, are not in a state that you should move forward because too many things are missing, too many test cases are failed, for example, to freeze your design, then you need to do some rework. That is, let's say, in 80% of our customer projects already state of the art. But when it comes then towards cybersecurity, what we usually say, they have this process in mind, we're looking into their overall process landscape, and we see a long arrow like develop a cybersecurity product or ensure compliance to ISO SAE 21434, which is, does not add any value to processes, to projects, to anyone. It's just, fulfilling something on the paper. What we, especially when introducing cybersecurity new in projects or new in processes, approaches, if you have already a project process or development process in place, just add as a very first step the cybersecurity deliverables to the different gates. Because by that you ensure on a regular basis, is the project also from a cybersecurity point of view on the right track? Are the things in place as they should? Are any risks related to that? And you do not get into situations that you're completely on the wrong way, but nobody is aware of that. And that especially since many companies have a gap of people, a lot of external people also supporting projects, which are in many cases not really tracked. And by that you get the whole project aware of that, you get a tracking and you ensure the project is on the right track. A quite simple method, but it really, really helps a lot, especially in companies where cybersecurity starts more or less from the scratch. Another point, another idea, again, we are still here on project point of view, is we called it shared governance. So we have different cybersecurity related work products with different owners and different creators. So what I mean is, for example, you have a cybersecurity plan created by a cybersecurity manager. You have an item definition, maybe created by the system team, which just includes cybersecurity and safety aspects. You have, again, the TARA done by the cybersecurity team, same as the concept, but maybe the cybersecurity interface agreement is driven by the purchase team or somebody else. And on software level, for the cybersecurity requirements, that might be created by the software team and just reviewed by the security team. And maybe the production control plan is owned by manufacturing engineering. So all of them cybersecurity related work products are probably done by different teams. So not all work products are necessarily in the responsibility of the cybersecurity team. But in the end, the security team needs the evidences for the cybersecurity case and or for the type approval based on UNR 155. So we have different people in the responsibility, but in the end, the security team needs that. And of course, you can say now, okay, that's up to the cybersecurity team to ensure that all these work products are created. But actually, they are not able to define the work of the other teams. They're depending on them. And if you think, especially from an OEM perspective, and you need to deal with 20, 30 suppliers, they won't do anything else. What we would recommend here is having some kind of a shared governance between the different teams. So meaning, we have the different work products, but we need to we divide between, or we distinguish between the correctness from a cybersecurity point of view. That needs to be done by the security team. They have the technical knowledge. Is it compliant to the standard? Does it meet state of the art? But the completeness, the following up of the documents, are they really created? Are they delivered on time? That is usually something the project management and program management is anyway doing, because they have the overall project and they have the overall deliverables. They need to go into contact with the people. Are you meeting your deadline? What is the status? And that we would also recommend for the cybersecurity work products, to make really a split between ensuring completeness or availability of the work products and the correctness, and giving the usually, let's say, not sufficiently resourced cybersecurity team the ability to really concentrate on the technical work. So meaning that a cybersecurity manager does not need to follow up on hundreds of cyber software-related test cases or software test cases related to cybersecurity, and can keep that to the project management, and he just ensures, once they are ready, the technical correctness from a security point of view. Another idea, another measure, now more from a process point of view, is about a strategic process rollout and training, we call it here. So again, processes are quite important topic. We have it in this part of the standard. It's a precondition for the regulation. But what happens, unfortunately, in many projects, they take the standard. Based on the standard, they create a huge process landscape, but by an isolated process team, so not by the people who work on the projects, and only based on the ISO SAE 21434. So a lot of companies have good processes on paper, but it's not reflecting what they're doing in the projects. And what happens if they roll that out? They roll that out without verification regarding feasibility. Does it really match what the people are doing in the projects? And without preparation of the teams. Teams do not know what is coming. So some kind of a big bang. Here it is, good luck. Yeah, and what happens, it's usually some kind of a blind compliance to the ISO. It's not actually meeting the target. You have overwhelmed project teams. They get a new set of processes they need to apply from today to tomorrow. And what happens in the end, they will not accept it. They just ignore it. They concentrate on the daily work because they see process as additional work. The processes should support companies. They should support engineers and make the life a little bit easier. And therefore, first, if you're really working on a process, really defining process, take all inputs into account you have. Of course, the ISO standard. Of course, especially from a manufacturer point of view, the UNR 155. But also other helpful standards like the NIST standards, for example. So whatever created added value. Further, don't only rely on the theory. Look what your projects, and usually all companies already started in the projects with cybersecurity. What are the solutions there? Maybe you can already reuse a created cybersecurity plan and derive a template from it. And also integrate the way of working. For example, what kind of tools you're using for your requirement management. So I had a situation in a project where I was going through the process and saying, okay, here as a result, we get the cybersecurity plan. And then the people say to me, we don't have a cybersecurity plan. It's part of the project now. But that means the way of working on the project was completely different what is written in the process. And of course, also taking into account the experience of the people. And Based on that, you create the process. Then, in the best case, you do a pilot, apply it for a short team, get feedback, improve. Train the people that they know what to do, that really they understand. It does not change everything. It's maybe just a few steps, and you get a complete different acceptance by the people. Most people, also the ones which were not involved in security before, understand the need, but most of them are afraid that their way of working changed and that they have a lot of more things to do. And then integrate that stepwise. Don't do a big bang. Do it. Start with one project, maybe which starts new, and then with the next project started from there. But don't apply it to everyone at the same time. And talking of that, two more words or two more comments. First, on the process creation, I mentioned already. Think about the purpose, what a process should achieve, and don't go for blind compliance of the ISO. Maybe you're deviating based on your company framework, but you can integrate that if you have a good argumentation and if you don't add additional risks. But just following the standard because of the standard, that doesn't create added value. And second, again, do a stepwise rollout. So not all projects at the same time need to follow all processes. And one more thing about the training. I would also spend a few minutes on that. So what is happening now, in the end for us as a consulting company who's also providing training, is a good thing. Companies put a lot of money by buying, in many cases, external trainings and apply the same training for all roles. And actually what is happening? Employees have to invest a lot of time, but they are trained in areas which are actually not relevant for their daily work. So, for example, somebody from production does not need to do a whole day or half a day how to do a Tara. He needs to understand the purpose behind it, but not all details. And they only learn the theory and not the company-specific approaches. And in the end, they do not know what changed for them. So it's just like, okay, we have a training, apply them for everything or for everyone, and we can make a check mark for the competence management. But actually that does not really work from our point of view. So when talking about trainings, I would always distinguish between the technical know-how, so what the standards say, what the state of the art is, and the company processes, the company-specific know-how. And of course, for the technical know-how, you need to be aware you have different levels for different needs, maybe some kind of an awareness level where people touching security. They need to be able to raise their hand and say, okay, that could be a risk. Then we go to my manager, complain of a basic training, everybody who's really interfacing with security topics. And of course, people who really work on a concept, on a Tara and all that stuff, they need more knowledge. But sending somebody who is just an interface does not need to go to a 3 or 4 day training, from my point of view. And on the process level or company level, you have different teams which have the same questions, but different answers. What is my to-do? How can I solve it? Where I need to find the right information? Who to contact? So applying, again, the same thing for everyone doesn't work because the answers might be different. And I can only recommend, think about a tailored and modular approach for your trainings. Think about how to group them, how they can have discussions with people doing a similar thing. It's reduce the time of all employees which already have a full calendar, and usually you get them higher motivation because they see the need. They see why it's important exactly for them. Maybe it's more work at the beginning, of course, but I guarantee on the long term it saves a lot of time and money. So it's working smart instead of just reacting. So you've seen there are different ways. Most of them are not rocket science, but it's important to start implementing them. And so we talked about the measures, ideas, but how to prove it then as a culture. As you know, ISO, SAE 21444 and UNR are evidence-based. For everything we are doing, we need an evidence. And one approach for all the measures before, especially towards the cybersecurity culture, would be for us using key performance indicators. Again, basics from project management. So meaning having a quantifiable measure of our performance over time for a specific goal. So what does it mean? We have start date and end date after 1 year. We establish that measures. We need to define goals from that. For example, what is the number of trained people? What is the number or the percentage of accepted work products to dedicated project days? What are the number of committee meetings we want to reach? You derive the goals, you define the KPIs. Of course, you need to check the progress, maybe after half a year. And in the end, you have a plan, you have a report where you are, how are you deviating from that, what might be the risks, and what might be the actions based on that. And then you can show that was our targets for a strong culture that we wanted to reach. There we are, and that's our argumentation why we are good to go. And in addition to that, we have these dedicated steps to improve that, which should be, from our point of view and our work with assessors, the technical service so far, sufficient evidence for the cybersecurity culture. And of course, here are some examples in which direction you could go. For example, as I said, for the management side, for the committee, what is your target value of meetings, maybe one per quarter, the number of participating people in a meeting, an average 90% every time rather than 75, etc., etc. So based on your measure, think about what you want to reach, how you can measure it, and follow up on that and document your progress and probably your next step to create an evidence for your culture. That means, so coming also good in the time, my conclusion, which is actually quite short, is that it's maybe an obvious topic, but you've seen a lot of companies struggling here. So first, there is no shortcut for establishing a strong cybersecurity culture. And we've seen also many companies who just moved the topic to the future and moved it and only concentrated on the technical aspects of their products. But you need to start, because that's something that also takes time. Also the measures I described. It is not something that can be done from today to tomorrow. The second point, cybersecurity culture is about people management. We are working here with people who need to accept a change in their daily work and in their organizations. And probably most of us agree people do not want to change. So we really need to be careful how to transport the message, how to communicate, and how to prepare the people for that. Because if the people are not accepting what you're doing, you will never be able to implement things in your company. And of course, everything we are talking here, I know it is effort, it costs in the end money, but it's something which pays off later. If you're able to achieve that cybersecurity is just considered as normal and not something extraordinary and not something separated from all the other things you're doing. All right, so that's it from my side, and I'm looking forward to some questions about that topic.
All right, Manuel, thank you so much for the great presentation. I mean, culture is one of those topics that's not so tangible, right? You can't really quantify it, but somehow it always has an impact. So I find your presentation really well put together. Thank you very much for that. We do have a few questions. I do have one question myself, and since I get to play host today, I'll prioritize it a little bit higher. But culture is something that does take time. It does take resources. It takes away from potentially, looking at time spent on other stuff.
Mhm.
And as you mentioned, it's about the people, right? So if my question goes in the direction, at what point does a company, if you're a really small company, you're creating the culture very easily, right? You
Mhm.
have a small team, you have a very close relationship with everybody, and creating a culture is easily achievable. Um, Also very important. But as teams and companies grow, at what point do you have to actively start developing culture?
So this question reminds me on our own company where we grow in with its whole about communication, setting rules, setting processes. And of course, it's quite hard to say where it starts to stop. I think what is important, even if you're a very small company, to write things down, to really bring things on paper. Even it's maybe clear because it's only 3 people, but people join, people go, teams are changing, and things which is in the mind of the 3 people, maybe it's a different team in 2 years, and this information get lost. So I would always recommend, even when you have a very small team, write things down. That doesn't take much. That doesn't take much time. But for everybody who's joining new, you can even say, this is our list of 5 important points for us as a security culture in our small startup. People directly get to know that.
Mhm.
And once a company is getting bigger, I think one important point is to be aware that people from other departments might have no understanding what a security team is doing. And even if we talk about companies with 100 people, if we take a production line and people in the production, they do not need to know what a HARA is, of course. But they need to be aware, hey, security is a topic for our products, and maybe we should not lock our PC, keep our PC unlocked, which goes more in towards IT. But what I'm trying to say is, I think it's important to identify whenever you have teams which have no idea what is going on about vehicle cybersecurity. That this is for me a signal where to say, okay, at least we need to create some kind of awareness that everybody should know, okay, that's a topic, and at least we should keep our eyes open.
Mhm. No, completely agree with you, Manuel. It's just not so easy. It's always one of these intangible topics. So
Yeah, I know.
I love to get people's opinion about it, especially an expert like yourself. Um, so we have a few more questions and some more time. So I'll go ahead and place this directly onto the stage so everybody can see it here. Today we are in a race of quick time to market.
Mhm.
How low-cost solutions, how efficiently cybersecurity culture can be followed.
Mhm. I would answer that, let's say, in a bit of a broader range. So in the end, for me, this question goes directly in terms of processes, where people say we cannot follow the process. That's additional effort we have to do, which is in many cases or many times the case. Um, and we should think about in the measures what we're doing, and also if you define processes, one of the things I also discussed, what is really creating added value? What is making our work more efficient instead of slowing us down? Let's take the committee, which I had in my presentation, as an example. If you have one person who needs to do everything, you don't get decisions. And without decision, from my point of view, you're not moving forward. If you divide it across different shoulders, you have a regular meeting and say, okay, here we need to do that decision, this decision, you get more progress. So we should concentrate on measures which make the life easier and not creates additional efforts. And that's in general with processes. And I personally believe that's always possible, but you need to take into account the circumstances of the company. So, John, we had the discussion before. If you have a small sports car manufacturer, you need to complete a different approach than for VW or for Ford or something like that. And that's
Mhm.
important. And a lot of people just, not a lot of, but many people, that's the same. People just following blindly sometimes regulations and do not think what is our best approach here. And I think that also comes here into
Yep,
account.
completely agree with you. Next question is when staffing a cybersecurity decision board with representatives from across the organization, isn't it problematic to have people without cybersecurity experience making cybersecurity decisions?
I would say if you completely ignore any knowledge, of course, but I would expect that somebody in such a board has at least gets some awareness session, some awareness training, 2 days, 2 days, of course, 2 hours or something to understand the basics and what is behind it. So they do not know the details of the ISO, but they should know what might be risk, what might be consequences. Some kind of a C-level awareness that I would expect from everybody in that position, that they get that basic knowledge. Really, I'm talking here about 1 or 2 hours. But if we take it to the question another round, how can a cybersecurity manager really do decisions which completely impact the finance of a company or the reputation? And the idea here is that you have the knowledge of the different people. You have the cybersecurity manager and says, we have here a huge risk if we bring the product to the market. But the guy from the finance says, okay, if you're not able to bring the product to the market, we might have even a problem if it exists in 1 year. So we take that risk. Or in other cases, even not. Or we say, it's not really a financial topic, but your head of communication, whatever, says, if something happens, our reputation is already on the lowest level because we had some other quality issues before. And that's the idea, to bring the heads together, the different knowledge, and to get a decision. And of course, in that case, if you have really a problem, you need somebody coming to the committee and explain a little bit so that it's clear. But the idea is really take the different knowledge of the different people.
Yeah, also agree with you, Manuel. Actually, I would think it's critical to have different points of view to make decisions, right? Sometimes we're so technically, or we have a certain viewpoint of what we believe is the best answer, but
Yeah.
Of course we don't see all the different viewpoints. I think it's dangerous when we get to a point where someone that does not have cybersecurity experience is the only one making decisions. So, all right, we have one last question. It's actually the most upvoted one. It is super important. So, Raphael is very interested when the newest book regarding ISO 21434 will finally be available.
Okay.
So, and the second part is even more important. I think we all need a discount code.
So for the first question, the target was end of September. We are currently have more or less finalized the content. We are now, let's say, in the final design phase. I would not put my hand into fire if we are able to meet that, but I would say latest, really latest, middle, end of October is available. And regarding the discount, let me take to with my boss and John. If I'm able to manage something, I reach out to you and then we can distribute.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much, Manuel. And the books from Cyrus are also really great, really interesting. I have the quick facts book sitting on my desk all the time.
Nice to hear.
So always need to refer back to it. But Manuel, thank you very much for the great presentation. Great topic. Love cybersecurity culture in companies and so on. I think it's super important to set that standard, the awareness, and within the employees and within the company itself. So thank you very much for taking the time today. If there are more questions, will you be available in the lounge for a few minutes?
Yes, of course.
Perfect. Then thank you so much, and looking forward to the talk next year, huh?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.